Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know. We're going to run you through everything from new coaching hires to some where we answer fan questions. So if you want to stick around for that, it'd be much appreciated. Go check out the channel if you haven't already. And let's get into the show. A lot of stuff to talk about on today's show. A lot of positive news. I mean, most of the stuff we already knew was going to happen. It just got confirmed. This one's a really good one, though. This first news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Patriots DB coach Josh Boyer joins the Dolphins. Former Dolphins defensive coordinator Kevin Coyle has resurfaced as the head coach of the Atlanta Legends of the AAF. He originally joined the team. I don't know how this has anything to do with Josh Boyer here. Let's see. Yeah, I think it's some kind of typo or something. But basically, if you don't know who Josh Boyer is, you should, because obviously he coaches the defensive backs for the New England Patriots. Not a lot of talented guys. I mean, Stephon Gilmore, obviously a very talented corner, was when he was in Buffalo. Obviously, he's getting a lot of credit and spotlight now since he's a Patriot. But for the most part, I mean, you talk about Malcolm Butler, Logan Ryan, some of the guys he's developed in that cornerback room is pretty impressive. So the fact that he is going to be the same, he's going to be have the same job with us, and move on from New England says a lot to me about Brian. And the fact that he's going to be coaching Xavier and Minka is awesome. So I thought that was a really good hire by us. So yeah, great, solid hire. Again, if you don't know who he is, I mean, he's coached the New England DBs and developed a lot of good talent. And so is Brian. I mean, Brian's always obviously helped with those DBs as well, especially the safeties in particular over the years. This next news story is a very big one. Dolphins officially hired Jim Caldwell. Now, we knew he was going to be a Dolphin as soon as Brian Flores was hired. It wasn't really rumored. I mean, it was basically confirmed that Jim was going to be coming over to Miami. But we just didn't know what role. We didn't know what he was going to do. Was he going to be the offensive coordinator? Was he just going to be the assistant head coach? A consultant? We didn't really know what he was going to do. So this details what his job will be. The Dolphins have officially announced Jim Caldwell as their assistant head coach / quarterbacks coach. Interestingly, their press conference did not mention the hiring of Dom Capers as defensive coordinator, a move that has been expected over the last week. Caldwell, the former Colts and Lions head coach, interviewed with the Browns, Cardinals, and Jets this offseason for their head coaching vacancies. The Lions made the postseason twice during Caldwell's tenure in Detroit, and with the Colts, his teams went 26-22 with one AFC title and 2 divisional championships. New head coach Brian Flores does not have previous head coaching experience, but Caldwell can provide valuable counsel for him in his first year at the helm. So yeah, Jim Caldwell is super successful. I mean, it's really weird that he's been fired as many times as he had. I mean, what he's done with Detroit in particular, no other head coach has been able to do with that. What he's been able to do there, I don't know, the last 15 to 20 years, really, to bring that kind of consistency to playoff appearances, well over 500. It's pretty impressive, especially with a place like Detroit, which has been just obviously not very consistent. And obviously he was the quarterbacks coach for Baltimore in 2012. Then they fired their offensive coordinator, and then he became the offensive coordinator, and then they went on that magical run that the Baltimore Ravens did throughout the playoffs, and then eventually beat the San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl. So Jim has a ton of success. He's coached a lot of really good quarterbacks. I mean, he really developed Peyton Manning for many years. I think since 2002 till up to the point where he became head coach. So that's, he's very Bruce Arians-esque when you look at his resume. Like, he's always been behind the scenes, but everywhere he's went, he's been very successful. And even when he was a head coach, very similar records with the two. Obviously, he lost the Super Bowl as a head coach. So, very similar resumes between the two. Everywhere they go, they have a ton of success in whatever they do, and I don't expect anything less from him coming to Miami. So that's one of the best hires that anybody's had, and for him to be the quarterback's coach, It's just a huge. It's such a good move by this organization to bring in someone with the pedigree of Jim. I have no doubt in them. He's like the Darren Rizzi of his like that. Like, I am not joking when I say he's basically Bruce Arians. So we got a really good coach on our staff. That's the best hire that this organization has had on our staff probably since Bill Parcells, in terms of someone who's experienced and has had a ton of success in other places. It really just is a really good organizational move. This next news story, I mean, it's not really news. Well, hang on a second. I just want to confirm this because this whole... If you didn't hear... Okay, so yeah, we'll start with this. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins hire Patriots wide receivers coach Chad O'Shea. Now, this is all... we've already talked about this constantly, but this is official. It's a done deal. On Wednesday, the Dolphins formally hired Chad O'Shea as their offensive coordinator. O'Shea coach Brian Flores. O'Shea follows new head coach Brian Flores from New England to South Beach. Flores was not formally hired until after the Super Bowl, but his staff is in place for the most part. Former Colts and Lions coach Jim Caldwell is expected to serve as Flores' assistant head coach, and former Packers linebackers coach Patrick Graham will be the defensive coordinator. Flores and O'Shea have been working together since 2009. O'Shea is regarded as an up-and-coming offensive mind and was set to become the Colts OC last year before Josh McDaniels bailed on Indianapolis. Last year, McDaniels spoke very highly of Chad. He said, quote, "Chad's unbelievable. He's incredible. Responsible for any and all of our success in the red zone. He does a lot of work and prepares us well for any situation in a game." O'Shea is 46 and he offers 15 years of NFL coaching experience. Prior to joining the Pat staff in 2009, he had stints with the Vikings and Chiefs. As a wide receiver coach, he's tutored Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, and Danny Mandola, and other NFL notable receivers. I'm very excited about this hire as well. Now, you might say, well, you know, we had the same issue with Matt Burke being an experienced coordinator, never really called plays in a game before, and we saw how that turned out. The reason this is different is Chad has such a good resume with developing talent and having his groom, be super successful despite the talent. Matt Burke didn't have that. He did not have that kind of a resume. He did not have 8+ years of developing talent that wasn't considered, you know, superstars or stars for that matter, and getting them to play at a high level, and that's what Chad has done. So that's why I'm not worried about him being successful as the offensive coordinator. I feel like he's proven it, he's earned it, and there's no reason for me to doubt that he's going to be able to be successful at it, because he's been successful at a very, very high level at a different position. It's not very different. Obviously, not different. The fact that he coordinated the red zone offense and obviously coached the receivers should help him a ton. And again, the reason I'm not skeptical or worried is because he did it at such a high level. This next news story, Dolphins re-sign long snapper John Denny. So, obviously, the long-time Dolphins long snapper is going to return. Dolphins safety Rashad Jones has surgery. Not really want to go into detail on that. He had shoulder surgery. Obviously, that shoulder has been bothering him. This whole Dom Capers situation and Patrick Graham situation is very, very odd, but I'm pretty sure the Dolphins have officially hired Patrick Graham as their defensive coordinator, and I want to fact check that really quick because I don't want to get that wrong, but I'm pretty sure he is officially the defensive coordinator for us. And I just want to make sure. Yes, so he is officially hired as the defensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Patrick, he coached linebackers in New England up until last season. It's the only time he didn't. So he's helped develop players like Dante Hightower, Kyle Van Noy, Some of the notable ones, obviously, when he went up to Green Bay, Blake Martinez, Kalen Farrell, I can't remember what his first name is. So yeah, the two linebackers that had super successful seasons that nobody knew who the heck they were beforehand. So the hiring of Patrick Graham, in my opinion, on this is a little more skeptical. It's going to be interesting to see what he does as a first time. I mean, it's a pretty big jump. I mean, it's not that big, but he has no play calling experience. Unlike he doesn't coordinate the game plan so much as he just develops talent. And Chad at least coordinated some of the game plan when it comes to red zone offense. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does in his first year, as opposed to someone like a Dom Capers. This is the problem I had with Adam Gase's when he hired his coaching staff. First time head coach, he didn't hire anybody with any experience in any kind of success beforehand, or any kind of long term. Like Clyde Christensen's the closest thing to it, but Clyde never had any head coaching experience, or any kind of like big responsibility experience. Like someone like a Wade Phillips, who had been a head coach, who has been a super successful defensive coordinator, and that really helped Sean McVay out and get his program started. So the fact that Brian went out and got Jim Caldwell is such a big signing for us, and I think Brian knows what he's doing, and I love the coaching staff so far. The only one that I'm not super sold on is Patrick, but everyone else is such a good hire. I mean, the DB coach, from the DB coach to Jim, I really like where this program is headed. It gets me very excited. I mean, it gets me really, really, really excited. And I can't wait. Now, obviously, this is going to be a process. Now, with these three, just straight out, I mean, this coaching staff is the best we've had in over a decade. It's better than I could even go farther than that if I wanted to. But I would have to sit here and think about some. I mean, seriously, this coaching staff is legit, dude. Now, will Brian Flores be this great head coach? I don't know, but the rest of these guys are really just and Brian. I mean, the run that he had in the playoffs, and what he did in the Super Bowl. I mean, this coaching staff is ridiculous, dude. I mean, this is the Avengers Endgame of the Dolphins. Seriously, our slogan should be this, not us. Seriously, this is such a good coaching staff. I've already said why, so I love it. I love it to death. This is the best. Like I said, this is the best coaching staff we've had in a very long time, and I'm very excited. This next news story is let's see here. I'm trying to figure out which one we're gonna do next. There's a lot. See here. Alright, we'll do this one. This next news story comes from Fin Fanatic. Making sense. This is more of an opinion piece than it is fact. It's not really stating any news. This comes from the Fin Fanatic. Making sense or no sense out of the Miami Dolphins quarterback situation. This offseason is going to be interesting for the Miami Dolphins as they look to shuffle players in and out of Miami and potentially find a new quarterback. The question is still what quarterback will be a bridge to a rookie, or will he just be a rookie? Solving the quarterback position doesn't appear to be a huge issue for the Dolphins this offseason. If reports from local media is to be believed, most feel that Miami will surrender the 2019 season in an effort to land in a position to draft one in the 2020 draft. Excuse me. The Dolphins, however, answered the question. That doesn't, however, answer the question of who would start in 2019. The Dolphins have options, but there are not many of them, and frankly, some could cost way more than Miami needs to spend. Rookies are the obvious choice. There are players like Dwayne Haskins and Kyler Murray at the top of the draft. Haskins is likely going in the top 5, and while Murray could fall to the Dolphins at 13, there are some serious concerns about his dedication to football over baseball. So much so that many believe he shouldn't be drafted in the first round at all. Outside of those quarterbacks, it starts to dwindle down. Let's see here. I've lost my place. Reach for a quarterback too early. Most of the other incoming freshmen are day 2 or 3 picks. Miami could look to add a day 3 quarterback and let them play out 2019 to see what they have. Reality, however, says that if the Dolphins draft a quarterback outside of day one, they are looking for depth and development. Veterans will hit the open market this year, whether trade or free agency. Teddy Bridgewater and Nick Foles are heading to free agency potentially, and there are still rumors that Derek Carr could be had in a trade. The bigger issue with any veteran quarterback is the most want to start now and not want to be a bridge to any other quarterback. This is very interesting. There's a lot to take in on this one, so we'll break this down. So some of these guys are not going to be Dolphins, and I can tell you that for sure. Like Nick Foles will 1,010% not be a Dolphin. You know, Stephen Ross has already came out and said we're not going to the free agency to build this team. We're not making any big splash play signings when it comes to this. The direction we're going in. Now, this is a quarterback, so it is a little bit different than someone like, a Mike Wallace or some kind of stupid move like that. But I don't think the Dolphins are going to pay all this money for Nick Foles. I just don't. I think Nick Foles is probably a Jaguar or something like that. He's just not going to be a Dolphin because of the price tag and because of the market that we would be competing with. Teddy Bridgewater, that's a mystery. I couldn't tell you one way or the other. Would it be a good signing? Yes, I feel like Teddy has a lot of football left in him, and he's really young, and he could develop into a superstar. I really do believe that. Derek Carr, this would be the play of the year for the Dolphins. I love Derek Carr. I think he's a great quarterback. He's just played with terrible surroundings in a terrible organization. Overseeing him, I don't think he's going to be. Traded. I think Derek Carr's a great quarterback, and the Raiders would be fools to do so. I mean, his stats are actually pretty good from this past year, and that's not a joke. He actually played pretty well for the people around him. Let's see here. If I can't find the stats really quick, I think he threw like 20 touchdowns and 8 picks. Someone can correct me on that, but if I had to guess, I would say that's what he had. We'll see here. So he threw 19 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and he had 4,000 yards, a rating of 93.9. Not too bad. I mean, his team was terrible. Like, he had the worst roster around him in the NFL. I mean, it was worse than the Cardinals' offense. He didn't have a David Johnson. He didn't have a Larry Fitzgerald. His offensive line was trash. The best player he had on offense was Jared Cook, and you can maybe make an argument for Richard. It was just god-awful. So for the Raiders to just give up on someone like that when they gave up on winning anyway is pretty stupid. So let's just say Derek Carr is in play here. That would be better than anybody we could have drafted. That would be better than anything, is getting Derek Carr. I really think Derek Carr is a franchise quarterback. A lot of people have pointed really to the last, 2 years now. It's just been kind of rough. But if you look at the roster that he's had, it's not been very good. So, and some of the stuff they've tried to do there in Oakland, I think if we got him, we could build a good team around him. I think it would be a better fit for him. So, especially with the staff that we're assembling and the direction this team's going in. And we already have a pretty solid offense. I mean, our offense right now is better than the one he has in Oakland right now. You talk about players like Albert Wilson, Jakeem Grant, Kenyon Drake, Laramie Tunsil protecting his blind side. Hopefully, Juwan. Now, we don't know if Juwan's going to stay or not, but that would be a huge plus for him. He's got a really quick release. He can obviously push the ball down the field at a high level. I think he would be perfect if we could get Derek Carr. So in that scenario for the Dolphins getting a quarterback, I think that would be the best one for this season, and for the future really would be to get Derek Carr. Will that happen? Probably not. This final news story comes from the Fin Fanatic as well, and it is a 7-round mock draft that we're gonna go over really quick. Round 1, the Miami Dolphins select Farrell, edge defender from Clemson. Obviously, the defensive end from Clemson. This is obviously from the Fin Fanatic. If you want to go read just fill in the blanks, you can. I'm not going to do. I'll just give you my opinion on this mock draft. Yeah, I think he's a solid player. He would fit the multiple fronts that we're trying to play. I think. I mean, obviously he's in need. We need a pass rusher, so I like that pick. And Clemson edge defenders turn out pretty well in the NFL, for the most part. Some are duds, but some are actually really good. Round 2, Isaiah Buggs, defensive tackle, Alabama. This would be a good pick for the. I mean, obviously, we definitely need a big guy in the middle. I mean, I still feel like we can get that in free agency for super cheap. There are so many good defensive tackles that fit our front that we could literally just address that in the free agent market. We think about Malcolm Butler, Brett Urban, who am I supposed to think? Grady Jarrett, who's a little bit on the higher end, but Brett Urban, Malcolm Butler, it is Malcolm Butler, right? Malcolm Brown, I think Malcolm Brown, the DT for the New England Patriots. Brett Urban, and Greg Jarrett, and then and Danny Shelton as well. Like, those are guys that can do that at a high level, and I think I would rather do that than take Isaiah Buggs in the second round. Round 3, Michael Deere, guard/center, Wisconsin. I love that. Any kind of Big Ten, any lineman from the Big Ten, they run pro style offenses down there for the they do a lot more under center stuff than normal college football programs do. So they always kind of hit the ground running. I think that would be perfect pick for us. Just getting a stout lineman, especially in round 3, to get a quality player like that who can really make an impact on the team right away, I think is a really good pick. Round 4, we have Miles Boykin, wide receiver, Notre Dame. This is interesting. Obviously, more of a potential guy than a finished product. Do we really want to go down that road again with a receiver? I would rather just continue building the trenches. If there was obviously we don't know who the heck we could have picked, but I would rather continue building the meat and potatoes of the team rather than receiver. I think our receiver core is actually pretty decent with Albert and Jakeem. It's not terrible. Round 6, David Long, linebacker, West Virginia. You're looking at a special teams player, not really going to make a huge impact right away. In round 7, Justin Lane, cornerback, Michigan State. So we don't have. Did I go over our 4th round pick? Oh, I didn't go over our 5th round pick. That was what I was wondering. Kaylor Collins Saunders, nose tackle, Western Illinois. So yeah, there you go, another nose tackle there. Again, I think we can address that in free agency. They're young, cheap nose tackles that are really good at what they do. You just pick one of them. And good DTs too. Brett Urban can rush the passer, so I don't see why we just don't go that lane when it comes to interior linemen this year. I don't think the Dolphins need to take a later round DT this year in this draft. I honestly don't get it. You can address that in free agency, in my opinion. There's no reason to do that in the draft. I'd rather just fix the interior of the offensive line in those 2nd to 7 rounds. You could just fix this offensive line. Maybe 2 or 3 picks in this draft go towards that. I would be totally fine with that. We saw what happened with the Colts when they invested in their offensive line. We've seen it before when the Raiders did it in free agency. I mean, it completely changed their franchise. Led to big years for those football teams. So yeah, if you want to go check out that draft and why he took those players, go to thefinfanatic.com and you can read why if you hear snoring and it sounds like death, really, that is a pug. And yeah, that's what a pug sounds like when they sleep. So let's get into the fan Q&A, ladies and gentlemen. This is obviously the segment of the show where we answer Dolphins fans' questions. But before we do that, let's get into the big topic of the day. The big topic surrounding the Miami Dolphins right now is tanking, and I want to give you my most detailed opinion on this. When they say tanking, and it's not, I've seen people say the culture. If you're trying to set a culture, then why would you do that? All this stuff. That's not what they mean by tanking. They mean starting a bunch of young players that are unproven and have no experience. And what is that going to lead to? It's going to lead to losses. That doesn't mean, hey, we're going to go out, we're actively trying to lose every game. You've just compiled a roster of young, high-ceiling players that you think have a future in this league, or maybe some of them won't. That's what that means. They're not actively going out there saying, hey, we're trying to lose week 10 or week 1. We're not trying to win this game. They're going to put their heart and soul into the game plan and try to win every single game. It's just that the players that are going to be in place are going to be young, no experienced players. Maybe most of them probably won't be stars in this league, but that's what they're going to do. They're going to develop this year. The better way to put it is develop 2019. Develop players this year. 2020, get a quarterback. This is the rumors. This is not what I'm just saying. This is not what I would do, but depending on what is in front of me. And then, get a quarterback in 2020 and be competitive in the 2020 season. So the people are saying, oh, it would be bad for the culture, all this other stuff. That's not true, in my opinion. I just don't think it's true at all, really. Because they're not actively trying to lose. They're just putting players in place. And they're not putting 35-year-old veterans out there. Obviously, that would be like going backwards. It wouldn't be productive. So that's what they mean by tanking. They don't mean, hey, we're going to go out there and lose, week 1 through 17. They're just going to put young... And I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing, is putting young players out there that you feel have a future in this league and see what they can do. I don't feel like that's a bad thing. Very similar to what we did in week 16, or maybe it was the last week of the season, when we played the Bills at home, and we basically played a bunch of young players. And we almost won that game. But we were trying to win. It's just we put a bunch of, younger players in that were developmental. So let's get into the fan Q&A. This first question comes from Gamerific. He says, do you think we have a chance to get Trey Flowers, and should we get him? No, I don't think that's the philosophy. He's a big fish in the sea. He's going to command a lot of money, and that would be an Ndamukong Suh-like contract in terms of a young pass rusher is going to command a lot of money. I think anybody who really gets him is going to pay a ton of money. Like, the market's going to be really high on him, and I don't think, again, that would be a huge contradiction to what the Dolphins said in their State of the Union, I guess, conference. This next question comes from Tech Me Out. He says, with the talk of becoming a more physical offensive line, how do you see Asiata fitting in? Did you think it was a mistake to draft Asiata, a very physical playing style at the University of Utah, and then try to make him fit a scheme that involved a more athletic type lineman? Some of the stuff we ran, it wasn't. A lot of it, I guess, was zone-based, reach block-based, so I guess you're right. But most of the stuff we really converted into was more physical, like inside zone, like just downhill stuff. At the point of the attack, try to beat you up. But you're right, it was mostly that. So I don't know if maybe it will help him, but who knows? Who really knows? This next question comes from Gamerific. He says, how do you think this excuse me, I'm all over the place. I'm really tired. He says, how do you think is a sleeper I keep saying how. He says, who do you think is a sleeper 6th round superstar? You don't have to answer if it's too hard. A sleeper 6th round superstar. Oof. That's too tough of a question, because that's just too many. You don't know who's going to be there. Someone could literally slide. That's too hard of a question. Corporate Gamer says, I want the offensive guard Cody Ford from Oklahoma, and we can trade back and get him. You mean in a first round? What round are you talking about, dude? I think fans would riot if we took Cody Ford in the first round. Corporate Gamers, I'm just saying, I just don't know what round that you're talking about. Corporate Gamers says, we should trade TJ McDonald because I believe we can get a 3rd or 4th. You're not getting a 3rd or 4th round pick for TJ McDonald. Absolutely not. Especially how bad in our secondary in terms of just busts in general were last year. There's just no way you're getting that high of a pick for TJ McDonald, unless Mike Tannenbaum's on the other team. Because we all know how much he likes old free agents. Let's see here. This next news story dude, I cannot think straight right now. This next question comes from Will. He says, what did you think about the the American Football League Alliance, I think it is called? It's the AAF debut. Did you think it's possible for us to eventually get possible talents from them? Yeah. There was one quarterback that looked good. I think his name's Wofford. He plays for the Arizona team that has the axes, and they have like that lime color going on. He looked really good. He threw for 4 touchdowns. He has a little pep in his step when it comes to athleticism. He was pretty accurate. He pushed the ball down the field. He looked like a competent quarterback, but it's really kind of hard to tell because the game is way slow. I mean, you could tell the difference between an NFL game and that game. There's a lot less explosive plays, especially from the running backs. The game is just a lot slower, so it's just a lot easier to make reads. You know, some of the blitzes that you can do in the NFL, you can't do in that league. It's against the rules, so I think it's really tough to evaluate. I mean, I guess it's not super tough because there's a lot of NFL veterans that are in that league. So, but you could definitely tell some of these quarterbacks are just utter trash. I mean, the Garrett Gilbert thing, everybody freaking out. I mean, I watched Garrett Gilbert in preseason with my brother, and he was god awful. So, I mean, he got beat out by Kyle Allen and some other Tyler Heineke, I think is his name. He got beat out by 2 other quarterbacks that would not would not ever, other than maybe Kyle Allen, would be a starter anywhere else. But yeah, I definitely think you definitely could find talent in that league, and I think the quarterbacks are. There's only really 2 that I would look at right now. It would be Josh Johnson and it would be the Warfare. I can't remember his full name, but those 2 because they really dominate. They have Josh has potential too, but Kyle dominated his competition. This next news story comes from Ron. He says, if the new coaching staff only holds 3 running backs total, who do you re-sign or who do you draft to go along with Drake and Balaj, who are still under contract? Do you try to keep Brandon Bolden, re-sign Sonoris Perry or Frank Gore, or just draft a guy? If you draft, who do you want? Excuse me. I'm not going to draft. I think I would just keep Brandon Bolden, and just because Kalen and Drake are so young and they really haven't had a shot to play with one another and get meaningful minutes between the 2. So there's no reason to draft a running back. So I would just re-sign Brandon Bolden, and that would be our backfield for the year. And obviously, Brandon has huge familiarity with this coaching staff, and I'm sure they know what he can do and utilize him to his strengths for sure. And I'm very excited to see what Kenyon does in a New England-style offense that Chad is going to bring over, especially since the running backs are so... I mean, you think about James White. I mean, Kenny Drake is a better athlete than he is, and he's just as good as a receiver as James White. So it's going to be really fun to see him in that offense. And same thing with Caleb Balaj. He caught a lot of balls in Arizona State, so we could utilize him in that way too. This backfield is good. I still think has a huge, bright future, and I can't wait to see what they do, especially in this offense. Corporate Gamer says, this question comes from Corporate Gamer. He asks, assuming we tank for Tua, who do you mind trading back in the first round for? I mean, how far are we going back? We're at 13, dude. So it's not like we're in the top 10. you can't really move that far back. We need a talented edge defender in the first round. So maybe Montez Sweat, the defensive end from Mississippi State, he could possibly drop a few spots back from 13. Maybe you make that move. So I'll say Montez Sweat. I think I probably, maybe that's not his name. Maybe I can't remember his name, but I know it's his last name's Sweat. I'm pretty sure. The defensive end from Mississippi State, who had a really good Senior Bowl. This next question comes from Ron. He asks, what skill do you like to have the most in your wide receivers? Is it speed, change of direction, good hands at the line of scrimmage, or precision route running? Definitely don't care about speed. Change of direction, good hands at the line of scrimmage, or precision route running. I mean, you can't really have one without one of these and be a really good receiver. I would say change of direction and precise route running would be the two qualities I look for in a receiver. You think of guys like Antonio Brown, who didn't run the fastest 40 time, but they're so dominant when it comes to the little things playing the position. Even DeAndre Hopkins, he's not super fast. He's just, he knows how to use his body. He's a physical receiver. He's a good route runner. He's got great hands, and he's got a great change of direction. So I would say route running and change of direction would be the two qualities I look for in a receiver. This next question comes from J Rose. He asks, who would you draft, Jonah Williams, O-line, or Greedy Williams in the first round to play across from X? Ooh, that's a great question. I would probably go with Greedy Williams, even though Jonah Williams he's a great player. But he's probably a better player than Greedy Williams, but I like Greedy Williams a lot. I think he can be a really good corner, and to have two big press man cover corners on the outside, which fits the scheme. I mean, dude, come on, and Minkah Fitzpatrick in the back. It's too much to think of. It's too hot. It's too hot coming off the pan. This next question comes from Gamerific. He asks, do you think Devontae Parker has a bad release? You're talking about coming off the line of scrimmage. A bad release? I definitely think he struggles with press man. I also think he struggles with effort sometimes. He struggles with a lot of things. His depth of field when it comes to routes isn't always the greatest. His consistency lacks big time. So yeah, I would say that definitely can be lumped in with consistency. It's just not having a consistent release. But he doesn't have a terrible release. He has the tools to be a great receiver coming off the line of scrimmage, and he has the athleticism to beat you deep. He's not he's not Dez Bryant, who just is all physicality. He has the body to be a Dez Bryant, be physical, but he also ran a 4.3 40. So it's honest to God, you just kind of, it just boggles my mind how he is not better than he is. And he's a good route runner. It doesn't make any sense how he's as bad as he is. He's just it has to be a mindset, and it's just consistency, being consistently going after it, play after play. This next question comes from Gamerific. He asks, what position should we get in the draft? I think my offensive line is the biggest priority in terms of how many you want to draft of that positional group. I would say offensive lineman. Jonathan, this next question comes from Jonathan. He says, he asks, would you be opposed to trading Rashad Jones? I love him, but if we were tanking and we already got Minkah, shouldn't we give him up if we get like a second or two or three? If we got a 2 or a 3, definitely should consider it. But when you sit back and look at this secondary for the Miami Dolphins and say you draft a Greedy Williams, or just leave Greedy Williams out of it and just look at the secondary without TJ McDonald in it, you have Minkah Fitzpatrick at free safety. You have Rashad Jones at strong safety. You have Bobby McCain in the slot for your nickel packages. Then you have X on the outside, who's a bona fide, legitimate shutdown corner. That secondary is really good. Like, really, really, really good. And having a coach like Brian Flores, who has helped develop really good safeties, when you talk about Deron Harmon, Devin McCourty, Patrick Chung, I mean, it's ridiculous. And then we get the DB's coach from New England, and the scheme that they run in New England, this secondary, to me, is already set to go. The second cornerback spot is the biggest question mark, but you could fix that free agency with a half-decent corner, or you could get a Greedy Williams who has potential to be a very, very good player. So, if you're Brian Flores, do you just keep that secondary relatively intact? I would probably say yes, just because of how good of a coach he is, and But at second and 3, you definitely would have to strongly consider it. But if I was him, knowing my track record and really being able to develop, especially in that positional group, getting Rashad Jones to play within a scheme and not go off script so much would be nice. And maybe Brian Flores is that coach who can rattle his talents in. JFG says, he asks, do you think the Miami Dolphins will be signing a fullback this offseason with the new Patriots offense coming in? Yeah, I definitely do. If not, draft one in the later rounds, like 6th or 7th round. This next question comes from Jay Rose. He asks, what do you think about our new coaches? I love them. This is the best coaching staff we've had in years. This next question comes from Corporate Gamer. He asks, let's see if I lost the question. He says, he asks, I think we should keep Leonte Carroo around a cheap deal. He has shown to look solid when given opportunities. No, I disagree with that. He's made 2 big plays in his career, but he's actually gotten more opportunities than you think. I mean, he had a lot of snaps last year and didn't really do too much with them. He's just not very consistent. Again, we're getting a better staff in here. With O'Shea's pedigree to develop receivers, if he gets his hands on players with really good football traits, it would be very interesting to see what he can do with players like that who have talented skills, but just were poorly developed. It is very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. There are a lot of players like that on this team. I mean, when you think about Devontae Parker, Albert Wilson, Jakeem Grant, those guys, think what he can do with someone with those kind of physical gifts who fit the mold of a Julian Edelman. Same body type, better change of direction, good route runners, great hands with the both of them. A Texas Tech guy like a Wes Welker was, you got that in a Jakeem Grant. Small. It opens the door to a lot of possibilities with someone like that coming in to coach them. So it's going to be very interesting to see. This next question comes from Corporate Gamer. He asks, I think we should keep... Or no, we just answered that one. This next question comes from Take Me Out. He asks, with the anticipation of going to a 3-4 and 4-3 hybrid, do you see it as an opportunity for Charles Harris to thrive? I hope so. The thing about Charles is he just can't set the edge. So he's not that New England tweener linebacker / defensive end that we need, like a Dante Hightower or Kyle Van Noy. He's not physical enough. He's not good enough against the run. He's just a pass rusher. That's all he is. So I just don't think he fits the scheme as much as you might think. So it does not bode well for Charles Harris because he can't play defensive end in the 3-4. He's not physical enough to do that. He's not big enough either. So he would have to play on the outside, and he can't set the edge in the running game. He's not physical enough against the run. So that's a problem with this scheme. He probably will not be a Dolphin for very much longer if things continue to go the way that they have gone. This next question comes from Will, unless we just use him for a situational pass rusher. He asks, do you think this tank for Tua is a smokescreen? We all know the Miami Dolphins are notorious for it. No one guessed we'd draft Charles Harris, Tunsil, or Minka. Yeah, I think, I don't think it's a smokescreen, but anything can happen within a few months. I mean, you fall in love with certain guys, especially at the quarterback position. I would not be surprised if you did see someone be taken off the board in round 1. I would not be surprised at all. I've seen a lot of done mock drafts, though, like us drafting Daniel Jones, and people that don't like Daniel Jones going, well, the Dolphins, they need a quarterback, so that's why they took him. It's like, what the heck? So just because he plays the position of quarterback is the reason we took him? That's just like the most dumb... how stupid and lazy is that? as an explanation. This next question comes from Will. He asks, the Dom Capers hire is so underrated. Remember when what he did with Charles Woodson? Don't you think Mika would definitely thrive in a role like that with Rashad playing in the box? Well, the Dom Capers thing is not a thing. At least yet it hasn't been, and it doesn't look like he's going to be the defensive coordinator. And we've hired our DB's coach. So I think someone like with the DB's coach coming over, Josh coming over, and you've got Brian Flores on the team as head coach. I think gets me super excited with the scheme that he's bringing over with the potential that this secondary has, because it, believe it or not, has a lot of talent on it. So we really don't need Dom Capers. We can get some. I think these guys are just as decorated as he was. When it comes to developing DBs. Gamerific, he asks, who is your favorite player coming out of the draft, and why do you like him? Would he fit our scheme? Who's my favorite player coming out of the draft? This is one of those drafts that's very difficult to say. I like a lot of the tight ends that are coming out of this draft. I think there's a lot of good ones, especially from Iowa. But who's my favorite? That's a tough one, because if you asked me last year, obviously that would have been very easy to answer that question. I would have said probably Sam Darnold, but if I had to answer the question, let's see here. I'm trying to think of all these players that are coming out. I mean, Nick Bosa is a monster. But if you're asking realistically who'd take him, like my favorite that the Dolphins could take, I love Kyler Murray. I think he has the potential to be a very good quarterback. I like Greedy Williams a lot. That's a tough one. I love T.J. Warren. I think he has the potential to be a pretty good player. I really don't have a favorite, but those are the guys that I like. Ron says, and Josh Allen too. My favorite player coming out of this draft, but there's no way we're going to get him. It's Josh Allen from Kentucky. He is a beast. Like, he's going to be, I think he's the best player in the draft. In my opinion, he's the best player in the draft. This next question comes from Ron. He asks, what coaches have been officially confirmed to be on Flores' staff so far? Not rumored, but officially. I've been away from the news for a bit with family health issues, so my question isn't an attack or a jab. I'm sorry to hear that, dude. That sucks. I've had to deal with that too in my lifetime, and it is the worst when that happens. So yeah, we'll be praying for you, man. When it comes to who's been officially hired, we went through it at the beginning of the show. Chad officially hired as the offensive coordinator. Jim Caldwell, quarterbacks coach / head coach, assistant head coach. Patrick Graham, defensive coordinator. Josh Bynes I can't remember his last name right now. DB's coach. So yeah, there you go. This next question comes from Will. He says, have you thought about the Mike Vick / Josh Allen / Lamar Jackson effect Kyler Murray would have on defenses at home when our stadium has the microwave heat effect? Whoo, that's a good point. I could see us throwing in some can you drink a Bellagio runs on early downs and take kind of a Seattle approach with our small receivers, and our secondary can definitely get turnovers. We'll just fired some shots. Oh, that's a really solid point. Oh my God, I love Kyler Murray. I think I like that a lot. Yeah, of course. Yeah, that would definitely. I like that. Yes, I agree with that. Gamerific asks, do you like DK Metcalf, wide receiver out of Ole Miss? I've heard about both of the receivers out of Ole Miss, and I have to go check them out. Agree. This next question comes from Court Gamer. He asks, agree or disagree? Let Devontae Parker, Robert Quinn, Danny Mendola, Tannehill, Andre Branch, and Sinton walk. Absolutely. Gamerifix asks, are you excited to get to 2,000 subscribers, and do you think you would have gotten this far? And do you think you would have gotten this far? Yeah, I'm excited for 2,000. Sorry, I turned my mic off. Yes, I'm excited for 2,000 subscribers. You know, we've been doing this show since 2016. So what? 3 years now, I guess. This will be the third year. It's kind of crazy. I mean, we haven't done this show for 3 years. This show we've done for like 2 years, maybe 2 years. But I started YouTube 3 years ago, doing video game stuff. Then eventually switched over to Dolphin stuff. So yeah, it's been one heck of a ride. I love doing this show. For all of you guys, and the support is obviously amazing. But doing the show every week, I don't have a lot of people I don't have anyone really to talk to at this kind of a level when it comes to football. So for me to sit here and vent and to have you guys have a conversation with me each and every single week about Dolphins football is awesome. And to have that, I think the fact that I've achieved that, I think is amazing. So I thank you all, and hopefully you guys continue to support the channel. And obviously everybody should be, praying for Ron and his family and the stuff that he's gonna have to go through, because that sucks balls. So anyway, that is gonna be it for this week's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. A lot of good news. I mean, this organization is headed in the right direction. It really is. I mean, Jim Caldwell, Patrick Graham, Chad O'Shea, Josh Bynes. I'm probably getting his name incorrect, but those guys are legit. Those guys are legit, especially Jim Caldwell. I mean, he's literally had success. Everywhere he's gone, he's had success. So, I can't wait. I can't wait to see what this team shapes up to be, what it turns into, what it morphs into, the decisions we make when it comes to the quarterback position. I'm very, very excited for this offseason. Everybody should be so hyped just for the spectacle alone of just seeing what this organization morphs into. Dude, we forgot one news story. Oh my God. Dude, it was the best news story on the dock. It was about Adam Gase butting heads with the GM and Greg Williams already. They've already gotten in fights, which is crazy. So, yeah, there you go. There's a little tidbit before we go, but, yeah. Anyway, so I'm Skyx83. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next one.